Hey there, it's the Board Game Bandit. As many of you know, I have a particular passion for bringing new people into gaming. I take great pride in providing a friendly, professional experience for new players, whether they are participating in a formal demo of mine or just happen to be at my table at a random game night. I've taught new players from a variety of backgrounds in a variety of settings, and I like to think that I have a lot of experience on this topic. I recently read an article about the popularization of modern gaming and how they were talking about tips to spread it further. Specifically, they mentioned losing on purpose to new players and advised that this was a good approach, particularly in relationships. I disagree wholeheartedly on this idea, and that's what I want to talk about this week. I have two main arguments for dissenting. First, that it's a bad idea overall and that you should not do this, but more importantly, you do not need to. First, I should admit that I myself have thrown a game once or twice in my life, and surprisingly, it's really hard to do without being obvious about it. Imagine being crushed by your opponent all game long, only for you to have a sudden, miraculous comeback. This is obviously going to be suspicious. Instead, you almost have to play the entire game poorly, and that can be hard to do because it works against our better judgment and our nature. But even if you do it successfully, there are a lot of problems with throwing a game on purpose. First, throwing a game is often based on a belief that an opponent cannot win on their own merit, which is not a good start. There are certain games where I know this is going to be true. I'll get to that later, but in general, what does it look like when you are making an assumption about someone's skill when you just met them? It's not a good foundation for a friendship or a relationship. First impressions are crucial, and you should choose your situations carefully. People will, more often than not, respect you for not treating them with kid gloves, which brings me to my next point. If the person ever found out that you threw the game, you're going to be in trouble. I've said this before. In many ways, gaming is a lot like dating. Let's use bowling as an example. Most people I meet view breaking 100 as a life achievement. Imagine taking a date bowling when you are above average. If you let them win when they are terrible, you would have to throw every game afterward to cover up for yourself. And that just isn't fun for either party. If you are worried about coming across as too competitive, or if you are worried about how a crushing defeat will impact your friendship or relationship, then you are playing the wrong game or you've chosen the wrong activity. I truly believe that it is better to handicap yourself and play at full strategy rather than to lower your strategy. Not every game is capable of this, but you should look for opportunities when they are. I often talk about the difficulty of training new Smash-Up players. It's really hard to say to someone, "Hey, want to play my favorite game? You're going to get destroyed." But if I give myself the worst possible combination, but play to the best of those factions, the player will be getting a realistic experience and perhaps they'll get a meaningful victory. This is an important distinction because I'm not taking less than optimal moves to give them a victory. I'm doing the best I can under handicapped circumstances. You see this a lot in sports. To use the bowling example again, I'm not intentionally throwing a gutter ball or trying to avoid a strike, but I've given a points handicap to the person. This is a way of acknowledging the disparity in experience without cheapening their victory. If someone ever finds out that you let them win, it's probably not going to end well. And in my experience, people who beat me tend to brag about it incessantly. So if I were to hypothetically let them win, it would drive me nuts knowing that they are rubbing it in my face when they should not have won in the first place. This is something I could never get them to stop doing because I could never tell them. So I strongly believe that you should not throw a game on purpose because it does not end well. But as I mentioned before, you should not need to. There are thousands of great games in the world, and of that number, there are plenty of gateway games where new players have a reasonable chance of winning. I created the spread system on my website specifically to help having a better success rate of teaching new gamers, and the R of spread has always stood for reasonable, as in players should have a reasonable chance of winning. Many of the best games take several playthroughs to understand the flow of the game or discover a strategy. So why are you teaching these games to a new player you are trying to bring into gaming? This situation can be avoided entirely because you have tons of other choices. Use something luck-based or light enough that it is self-strategizing. Some great examples are push your luck games like Ink and Gold or Celestia, or simple puzzle games like Dimension or Karuba. Love Letter and For Sale are great choices as well. It is also good to consider a game where scoring is not very spread out, like Karuba, a game where players tend to lose by 1 or 2 points. In a game where no one gets destroyed, players will be content losing since they stood a great chance of winning throughout the game, and it will make them want to play it again. Now, there are factors that make this harder. First, you may not have such a game on you at any given time. This is why I always bring at least one gateway game with me to every game night, because I like to be prepared for the situation where I may need to indoctrinate someone new. If you have the desire to be a gaming first responder, and if so, I thank you because we need more of those, you may want to consider doing this as well. I recently got a Quiver carrying case that makes it very easy to bring small games with me everywhere, and I have a couple of gateway games in there that I can use at any time. However, a more difficult situation is what happens if you want to teach someone a specific game, specifically when the game is not capable of being easily handicapped. The best example I could think of this is chess. Now, I'm not a chess player, and maybe there are ways of handicapping it, such as removing pieces, but then you may not be giving someone a full, realistic experience. In cases like this, you may want to consider outsourcing teaching the game to a computer app if it is available. For chess, I would think that it would be better to sit with the person as they play against a computer on Easy AI, where you coach them rather than trying to dumb down your own strategy. If this isn't available, then maybe you should bring the person into gaming in general before you bring them into a specific game. In gaming, I hate investing a lot of time explaining to someone only for them to leave the group and waste all that time invested. I think it's easier to scale someone up in terms of complexity rather than start high and lower yourself based on the results. If you start too high, they may not be at the table halfway through the first game. I'm sure that there are many reasons to feel incentivized for losing on purpose, but it is really not a good idea. Most of them seem to center on wanting to maintain a relationship with someone, and if that is a significant concern, then maybe you haven't chosen the right game or the right activity overall. Gaming can make us feel competitive, and that can be intolerable for some people until our relationship is solidified. I like to think that there is a perfect game for every person. Spend a little time getting to know the person, and you might find out you already have it. You don't need to lose on purpose. Be sure to check out the spread section on my website, theboardgamebandit.com, for more tips on bringing new people into gaming. There is a list of gateway games there. I'll be adding more in the coming weeks once I have a bit more time. Evangelizing new gamers is always going to be hard, but these are the methods that have helped me, and I hope that they will help you too. What do you think about losing on purpose? Do you agree that it's a bad idea, or do you think it's appropriate in some circumstances? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for listening. I'm the Board Game Bandit, and our game has just begun.